And in these types of situations, what often happens is that we either face a breakdown, or the other potential is we break through to new and creative possibilities.
We see that happening already. One of the silver linings in this very dark cloud is the different people and groups that are stepping out and doing these incredibly humane, creative things for their communities and for the world.
And we are incredibly blessed to have a group of translators who are joining us today, speaking in 8 different languages to transmit this course, this presentation throughout the world.
So thank you to our translators. Thanks to the thousands of people in the Generative Change community. Thanks to the team that performed really a miracle in less than a week, bringing this all together.
And you'll notice that Stephen and I are speaking a little bit more slowly and pausing between than we might usually do, and that's so that our translators have the opportunity to make sure that we are getting our message out to all of the listeners around the world.
So we want to organize this first 30 minute presentation into 3 parts. First is we want to talk just a little bit about what it means to be in a creative state.
Second part is that we want to then guide you through a series of steps with which you yourself can enter into that creative, generative state.
And third, we're going to invite you to use the creative space to attune to the question, what can I do that can be helpful to myself and to my community?
So the foundation of all our generative change work is that the way in which we respond to any situation is going to be dependent on our inner state of mind, our inner state of consciousness.
So if we're in a negative state, if we're tense, anxious, if we're numb, if we're angry, all that's possible to experience or be able to do is more negativity.
But if the state of our filters is more creative, that is, we're centered, we're open, we're alert, we're connected to our resources, then we have the possibility for other options, for many choices.
So we face the choice. Do we want to be in a negative state and create more negative realities, or we want to be in a positive state and be part of the solution for ourselves and everything and everybody we love?
We assume, of course, that because you have joined us today, that you would like to take that second choice, that is, to really enter into a realm of new possibilities.
The core way we talk about this positive state is through the term coach. What that stands for
are our set of inner qualities that determine this creative possibility that we have. The C, centered. The O, open. The A is aware, connected, and holding. Hospitality.
Centered, open, aware, connected positively, welcoming whatever is there. So let's very briefly touch upon what each of those means. The first, center. It means dropping out of your head where you're trying to understand, analyze, and control everything is your primary base, and letting yourself relax and drop down to this core inner place where there's wisdom, calm, clarity, and compassion.
And from this place of a inner physical, both physical and energetic somatic center, we then open to what else is possible. Open our minds, open our hearts, open a space of new possibilities.
Centered, open. This allows awareness to flow through you like a river, able to positively, without judgment, clarity, be able to feel awareness in each moment as it flows through you like a river.
Centered, open, aware, and then the next quality is connect. We say, especially in a time of crisis like this, we want to connect beneath it and connect beyond it to our inner resources and an outer field of resources that supports us.
This allows us to awaken the fifth part of the creative state, which is hospitality. This is a way of safely, creatively, skillfully, with curiosity, give a space for everything that's happening in a way that allows you to have a positive connection to it all.
So when you are centered, open, alert, and aware, connected to your resources, you can hold a space to be with, we say to be with whatever is there without being overwhelmed by it, without becoming it. And this is what we would like to guide you through in terms of how to create this state and enter this state for yourself.
Centered, open
Open,
beyond the problem, feel the flow of awareness, connect positively, intention, center, resources, and welcome. Creatively engage with whatever is there.
and from this state, then we'll move into setting an intention for creative action.
So let's see how we can develop this coach state, shall we, Robert?
Yes, I think that's a good idea. We are going to begin, of course, Stephen will begin with taking us to this place of center.
So we're going to ask you to find a good settled posture for relaxed awareness. You can stand up, you can sit down. What we're looking for is relaxed awareness.
So we say this first part before we center even is we're going to settle in, settle down, take a few conscious breaths to begin to bring your awareness to yourself, to your body.
You say, I come back to my center. I come back to my base. I relax my tension. I take a nice deep breath all the way in, hold it, and then as you exhale, just release all the tension, all the negativity.
We sometimes say, slow down, pause, breathe.
And as you begin to tune to that, we invite you to remember a time or a place or a person where you felt this deep positive, loving connection. Let yourself breathe in and remember you have known times of deep, creative, aware love before. Where, when, with whom. And if you sense one of those, just ask yourself to sense, where do you feel that most deeply in your body mind? If you were to talk from that place, if you were to sing from that place, if you were to walk from that place, where is that? And take your hands and just place that. I come to my center. I relax and bring myself to my center and center.
From that first part of the coach state, center, we then open. And I would really invite you now, as you stay deeply connected to this place of inner well-being, to then open your mind, open your heart, open to this bigger field of possibilities. This sense that there is something more, there is something that is yet to be brought into our lives. There are many more resources. And you may want to actually also just even be saying to yourself, I am open, I am opening my heart, opening my mind. And as you do, perhaps find a movement, a gesture that expresses that sense of opening to something more, opening to something creative.
So those are the two bases. And again, as you say it, find a simple movement. I drop into my center of calm presence. Find a movement in the place you touch.
And then I am open to possibilities. I am open to creativity. And again, find a movement that expresses that.
And this is something that can anchor you, that can ground you, that can keep you in that positive state. There, we add a third affirmation. I feel the river of consciousness flow through me. Awareness, nothing stuck, nothing judgmental, just witnessing with each breath. Curiosity. I feel the flow of awareness. And let yourself find a third movement. Center, open, awareness flow.
And as you breathe that through, we go to our fourth quality, which is connection. So center, open, aware. And this notion of connection is about connecting to our own inner resources, but also connecting to the resources around us, resources from our past, from our ancestry, from our families. Really, at a time of challenge like this, it's important to know how I can connect to this, all of the resources that are there. Resources in nature, could be the ocean, mountains, could be friends. What can you connect to that allows you to have that sense of resourcefulness inside? And again, as you think of some of these connections, find a gesture, a movement for that kind of connection head to heart, to belly, to body, to the earth.
And so we add this to our creativity dance. I tune to my calm, aware center, make a movement.
I open to that field of new possibilities. I open beyond problems, open to this larger sense of possibility.
Make a movement. And I feel awareness flow through me like a river, non-judgmentally, always flowing. Make a movement.
And I connect to all of my resources inside of me and beyond me, in my history, in the natural world around me. We make a movement of connection.
And from there, we have the fifth part, welcome. From this centered, mature, grounded, safe space, I open whatever is there. Negative things, positive things, thoughts, feelings, other people. Welcome.
Even perhaps as you've started to practice with us, you might notice that there are certain kinds of anxieties, disturbing thoughts that can come. And when we can create this space that's big enough, they can be there without overtaking us, without taking us into some place of what we call crash, of contraction or reactivity. So we just hold that space.
Great, great. This is something that we can do every day, 10 times, 15 times.
Just take that moment to center, open, be aware and alert, connect, and hold that space of hospitality for whatever is there. And from here, we take a second step, because once we can be with what is, with all of our, including all of our fears, all of our doubts, we can then begin to say, what action do I want to take? What is the creative action, the creative intention?
So the question, of course, is what can I do that might be helpful to me? Always start with yourself. What can I do that might be helpful to others? This is not a question to be answered in your head.
It's a question to hold in the deepest places in yourself. What can I do to be helpful to myself and to others?
So let's try the second part out within the coach state. I'm going to ask you to come back to the coach state. Remember the 5 steps. I relax and drop into my center and let a movement be with that. I open
to a space beyond that challenges, open to a space of creative possibilities, and make a movement.
I feel like a river of flowing consciousness. No judgment, changing in each moment, witnessing, let a movement go with that.
I connect to all of my resources within me and within the field of resources around me, my ancestors, to nature, to my friends, to all of those resources, and I make a movement.
from there, you just create a safe, open place where you can invite everything, just like a tea ceremony. Welcome. Tea, welcome. Tea, welcome.
And from this safe space, this place of deep interconnection and creativity, we drop this question into that. What can I creatively do to help myself and to help others? What can I do that can be helpful to me and to help others? And just for a moment, sit with that question.
Breathe. Hold the question.
Don't try to jump to answers or jump to solutions. Just let the question be there and see what comes.
And then when you notice anything coming, we can represent it in a gentle, rhythmic, three-part statement. For example, first is words. You might say, one thing I might do. What's there for you? Maybe take time for me, or talk with my loved ones, or make a contribution to my community. What might you do?
And we invite you to keep these words simple. We usually like to say less than five or less. If I could just express something simple, what would it be? A second way of holding this question is through inner imagery, using your imagination. What picture comes to you? It might be an image of yourself doing something. Could also be a symbolic image, but you want to use your mental imagination to open to this creative possibilities.
Just let the image come. Just let it come.
Maybe I see myself with somebody, see myself supporting somebody or doing something to make a difference.
Or I see a beautiful sunrise over the ocean. Just let it come. Just let it come. And so we want to represent our creative intention with words. What I really want to do that could be helpful is
we want to then represent also this creative intention with images, especially color images of possibility.
a color image that might go with that.
Thirdly, we want to do it with what we call a somatic model. What would be a movement or a gesture that would express this creative action, this creative possibility?
Don't think it in your head. Ask your body to find a simple movement. So let's just put this together and go through the three-part statement slowly.
So the question is, what can I creatively do to help myself and to help others?
One thing I might do is, see what word or words show up in your deeper mind.
color image that goes with those words is, and notice what picture or imagery comes.
If I let my body find a simple movement that represents that, ask your beautiful somatic wisdom to make a movement. Let's do it one more time.
What can I do creatively to help myself and to help others?
Let a word or a few words come.
Let an image begin to form.
And let the physical movement be there. So just let yourself do that on your own here for a minute or so.
Always
Come to my center.
center. I open to what's possible.
I feel my positive connection.
That river of awareness flowing through me.
And make room for everything that is here. And then to bring my creativity into action.
I drop this question. What can I do to help myself, to help others?
One thing I could do is
Color image that goes with that is
a simple somatic movement. So that's something that we share with you as something that you can do throughout the day. Rather than worrying, rather than isolating, let's use this crisis to awaken.
And as we begin to bring this first session to a close, we want to remind you that this is just the beginning to how we can create a new positive response. And it's going to require, again, one of the things that we say is we become what we practice. So we really want to invite you to find some time, to set aside some time to just take a moment to do this several times, multiple times each day.
We have the challenge of going forward into new community, new connections, new possibilities. We can do this. We can do this. To do it, that's what we're talking about, how to get from this little self that's isolated and up in the head to this bigger self that's connected to all of life. Golda Meir, when she was Prime Minister of Israel decades ago, was once asked, Prime Minister, when you have a problem, who do you talk to? She said, that's easy. When I have a problem, I talk to two people. I talk to my grandmother. I talk to my granddaughter. My grandmother who's no longer alive. My granddaughter who's not yet born. To that, I would say, let's talk with all of life, with nature, with our families, with our communities. That's where we find our creativity. President Kennedy, many years ago, said, "We will put a man on the moon." And we did. Martin Luther King said around that same time, "I have a dream." And he spoke it with such passion and such dedication that it began this huge shift that we haven't completed, but it's in action. This is the challenge we face today. We can do it. Let's do it.
And in order to be able to do this and to accomplish things that, as Steve was giving those powerful examples of putting somebody on the moon, of changing our society, we need to be able to have a way to move from a big dream, from what is possible in our imaginations, to make it possible and to bring it into our concrete daily life. And that's what we want to cover in this module, in this session with you. What are some of the steps, the concrete, practical steps that we can take in order to create these new realities? And what we're going to do is to guide you through a 6-step process that we've created that we use in our own coaching practice. And these 6 steps are, again, about moving from creative imagination to practical applications. The first 2 steps are essentially what we were covering yesterday. We'll be reviewing them again. This notion of going into a state of creative, open, aware presence, kind of connecting beneath and connecting beyond the turmoil, the turbulence, so that we can have a calm and grounded mindset from which to operate from. The second step, again, is setting an intention. What is the direction with which we will be guiding ourselves? And again, that's that question, what is it that we can do to help ourselves and to help others? The third step, which we'll be exploring the new part today, is how we come into a powerful generative performance state to get ourselves into a creative place of flow. And from there, we go to the fourth step, which is to really begin to move to action, to begin to plan specific steps from which to execute, with which to bring into being this direction and this vision that we have of possibilities. We like to say we move from dreamer into realist. Mm. And very often when we begin to move into realist, we meet what is in our fifth step, which is what we would call the critic. We meet the inevitable obstacles, the interferences, the resistances that come both from outside of us, but also within us. And we're going to present a couple of ways which you can creatively meet and form a relationship with these obstacles, so that instead of being a problem, they become part of a solution. We do a kind of what we would call a type of Aikido. We join and then transform these obstacles, and they become part of our team. And from there, we go to our final step, which is to then establish practices that will deepen those changes.
Wow, I just understood the Generative Change model. So let's start, as we did yesterday, the first step, coach. I'm going to guide you with slightly different, but find a good place to be with yourself, to claim as your own space. Find a good posture where you can be relaxed, open, but aware. And let yourself take a deep breath. And then say something to yourself like, I bring myself back to myself. I bring myself back to the connection to all of life, all that is good. in the world. I bring myself back to that. Relax your body, calm your mind, open your heart, feel your creative power. So in that place of just following your breathing is the most important thing. The relaxation in your body is the most important thing. Now we're going to add just a few sort of seeds or ingredients to help that coach state. The first is the seed, total relaxation in the body. You're not ordering this, you're not demanding, you're taking it like a seed, lifting it over your head, dropping it in. Total relaxation in the body. Total relaxation in the body. The second seed, complete calmness in the mind. You can do this again and again. We're just doing it in the interest of time briefly. Calmness in the mind. Third, opening of the heart center safely, deeply. Feel the heart open into the world. 4, feel a positive vision of what you want to create in your own life, with your loved ones, with the world. I hold a positive vision in my heart. And then 5th, I bring that into the world. Today, I bring that into the world. That's step 1.
And from there, we go to step 2, which when we think of how we bring that into the world and what exactly we will be bringing into the world, this is the notion of what we would call a creative intention. Now, we use the term intention here instead of a rigid goal, because as we know, in this days of uncertainty, of change, where everything changes moment by moment, if we fixate on one particular form of something, it's likely to create problems, challenges, disappointments. So we need to be able to have a focus, a clear, direct focus for change that gives us an opportunity for a lot of flexibility. We'd like to call this in our generative change work disciplined flow. So step 2 is to really get a clear sense of what is it that I want to create? What is it that I want to do? And this has to do with that question that we've been bringing, which is, what can I creatively do to help myself and to help others? So in this coach state, from this place of centered openness, awareness, connection, we hold that question. And then we begin to let an answer come. And we let it come in 3 ways. The first is in words. What would be some very simple words of what you could create, what you can do. We usually like to say 5 words or less. What is the simplest way that you could express what it is that you can do to help yourself, to help others? There's so many wonderful examples. I read recently of a group of 300 engineers who got together to simply find a way to create masks that can be done through 3D printing. So again, what could be some things that you can concretely do? 5 words or less. And then what image comes of that? What mental picture can you begin to form? Either a concrete picture of what you might really do, where you can see yourself taking some positive action, or it could also be a symbolic picture. Maybe you see something more as a symbol or a metaphor. But what is it that you can do to help yourself and to help others in this time of challenge? And finally, we let a gesture come. What would be a movement or gesture that expresses that intention, that expresses that direction? Make that with your body.
Great. So we find that connection deep within ourselves to all of life. We sense the positive intention we want to live. And now we prepare ourselves to actually bring that into the world. We can't just know it or feel it inside. We have to be able to bring it out into the community. So this third step, create a generative state. Our basic prototype is there's 3 parts. Connect to your center, connect to your positive intention, connect to your resources. So usually I invite people to do this standing. I don't want to stand because I might mess up the recording, but you might stand. Take a deep breath, say center. There's something I want to bring into life. Now, start with, I bring my hands, my mind to my center. Breathe, open. And you're looking to just attune to that so that you have on a scale of 1 to 10, at least a 7. That will indicate you're ready for creative action. I bring my hands to my center. I take the time to find the attunement, mind and body world. Second, intention. And here we're going to ask you to find a posture and a movement. I make a commitment to bring this into the world. I will bring this into the world. So from your center, find a posture. Not I hope, or maybe it would be nice. I will. Relaxed, centered commitment. I will. And then third, sense who can support you. Ask and open. I can't do this by myself. I open to all the people, the places, the things, the traditions, the teachers, the loved ones. And I call upon them to support me. Center, commitment to action, community of resources. That's the third step.
And our fourth step is holding these 3 connections, as Steve said, at a level of at least 7 out of 10 or more. Connection to myself, connection to that commitment to my intention, and that connection to the field of resources that support me in this process. We then begin to move, as we say, to realist. There are several ways that we can do this. Certainly one is we want to really bring our attention and our energy into our physical body in that sense of action. And as Steve was saying, very often when we stand to do this generative state, when we begin to move into action, it can actually be very helpful to make what we would call a timeline. Now you can make a timeline physically if you're standing by literally moving forward where the future is in front of you, the past is behind you. And if you take steps into the future, if you take steps forward, it's as if you're moving into your future. You're thinking What's step 1, step 2, step 3? You can also do an internal timeline, a mental timeline, where again, you might imagine, through your imagination, that the future is in front of you. For some people, they imagine it's off to the right or at one of the sides. But now, as we hold that sense of that intention in front of us, what is it that I want to create? We want to begin to find a set of steps. Now, key to generative change is that this is not just a mental, cognitive, sort of verbal left brain type of planning. It is actually what we call making a storyboard. We literally are putting ourselves into that future. We're not just thinking about it or talking about it. We want to really project ourselves so that we see what we see, we hear what we hear, we feel what we feel. And for each step, for example, if you were to take your first step, how would you state that step? What would that be? My first step is what? And what image would I see? If I say those words and I really project myself into that first step, seeing what I would see, what's there? What do I notice? What happens? What do I hear? What am I saying? And then what am I doing? And you find, what's the image that represents this first step? What kind of picture? And again, it could be a literal picture of what you're doing, or it could be a symbolic picture. And then finally, find a somatic movement, a gesture, a posture that represents that step. And then you would keep taking step 2 and 3, each time finding your words, your image, and your gesture.
That's great. So, center, intention, resources, take action. This is something you can practice on your own multiple times through the day. As we go on the creative path, we come up against many obstacles. And the bigger the challenge, the bigger the obstacles. And we have a big, big challenge. So we're actually going to focus on this next step, transforming obstacles, 2 times. I want to focus first, as we go to step into new territory, we run into emotional wounds or emotional fears that hold us back, that divert us. We want to connect with those, bring those into our coach state, transform them into resources. You can do this. You can do this. So let's sense yourself on that timeline. This is what I want to create. I have a commitment to action. And then sense, where do you start feeling shut down, block, fear, anxiety, distraction? And say, that's interesting. That's where the deepest part of my creativity lives inside of my soul. In order to make that soul energy human, we need to bring human positive connection to it. So as you sense, this is what I want to do, but let yourself bring your hands to that place where there's fear, numbness, and find your coach state. Bring it into your coach state. Say to it, welcome, welcome. I give you a place of honor on the team. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And continue this until you find, just like you were talking to a horse or a dog or a cat or a young child, that kind, loving connection begins to shift it into a beautiful, loving resource. That's the first way to work with obstacles.
This notion of creating a space, creating, we might call it a guest house, so that we can be with whatever is there without having to become it, without having to fight it or get lost in it. And once we have that place where we can hold it and be with it from a bigger coach state, we can then begin to bring other resources to it. We like to say, if you meet an outer obstacle with an inner obstacle, you have basically an unsolvable problem. But if we can meet an outer obstacle with our inner resources, we have a potentially achievable challenge. Now, as human beings and mammals, even beyond that, we are really born with three archetypal creative energies. And every animal, when a baby is born, it has these. We can connect to these energies, and these are how, throughout millennia, we have evolved to find creative solutions. And the first one of these archetypal energies is what we like to call fierceness. There are other terms for it as well. Sometimes we would say it's about strength, or it's about our inner power. So we bring this energy of commitment, of courage, of certainty, determination. And this is going to be one way that we find solutions, through our courage, through our commitment. A second one of these energies, this archetypal energies, we would call tenderness or softness. And this is where we bring our gentleness, our nurturing, our nourishment to something. We let go, we soften, we are receptive. And that's another way that we transform obstacles, that we create new possibilities, is through our loving kindness and presence. Third energy that we use to solve problems, and again, from the moment we are born, is what we call playfulness. This creative, playful, light, joyful. It's this sort of this energy of possibilities, of sparkling. So what we would just want to invite you to do is, when you meet some of these things, find your anchors for these three energies. Think of a time and think of a role model for yourself for this grounded, committed strength. What is courage like? And find your somatic model for that strength, that courage. And then do the same for softness, tenderness. Find your somatic model for that softness, openness, tenderness. And then playfulness. And whenever you meet an obstacle, you can find, as you cycle through those, they will each give you new possibilities.
So these are the core steps. We encourage you to share them, practice them for yourself, share them with others. Take times during the day to go through this process in your body, in your mind. Center, positive intention, creative state with resources. Take specific actions. Feel the obstacles, find them in yourself and heal the wound. Sense them in the outside world and do the dance of creative transformation. Is that great or what?
And of course, we like to say that you become what you practice. And so one of the interesting questions is, as we bring this particular broadcast to start to bring it to a close, is what is it that we commit to practice? We can practice complaining, we can practice anxiety, we can practice blaming, or we can choose to practice to be the best version of ourselves that we can be in whatever situation life brings us.